Hey everybody. So this week we are going to do a floor plan example. So last week I introduced the concept of the architectural floor plan, and just today I actually also attached the slides to that presentation. I meant to do that last week. I apologize. But so now we're actually going to make a sample floor plan together, and it's going to be really simple just to get the basic idea down, and we're going to draw it in CAD. I know you're looking at SketchUp right now, and then we'll move on to the homework assignment for this week, which is for you to draw a floor plan. So, what I have here is a very simple little room. Okay, so this is a room. Pretend this room is on the back of an existing structure. So this is this wall right here. Say is the back of the some building, a house or whatever. Here's a roof, not showing all of this wall. I'm not showing all of this roof, just suggesting it, kind of showing here that, yeah, this wall continues on. I don't really care what happens back here because really I'm interested in this room. So this tiny little room, maybe it's a shed, maybe it's a storage room of some kind, is where you're going to have your new office, just in this, class example we're doing here. So we need to draw a little floor plan of this so you can sort of plan it out. So what do we have? We have a very simple wall here going around, like a U-shaped wall that connects on to the back of this existing structure. We have a door. We've got two windows here. We've got a roof that overhangs. And if I just flip it around, it looks like we have a door here into the existing building. So all I want to do is draw a floor plan of this area. Okay, so how do I even get started? Let's make a couple of assumptions. Let's just assume that all walls are 8 inches thick. That's what I'm doing in this example. The width of walls, as you may know, varies. It depends on the construction that they're made of. Just for this example, though, we'll assume 8 inches. Door frames. A typical door frame and window frame, let's just say that those are 2 inches by 5 inches by whatever length. So they're 2 inches in the elevational view, in this like kind of side view I'm looking at. They go 5 inches deep, and they're whatever they may be. We can say doors are 2 inches, and we can say that glass and things like that are they have no thickness, so they'll just be a line. And we'll get into that as we break those down. This line you're seeing here might be a change in material, like the material down here might be something and the material up here might be something. I just put that on there because I want to do a little detail in the floor plan to kind of show you what I'm talking about, how to show that in floor plan. Okay, so how big is this room? Let's start there. So if I just measure one side here and I look at the bottom right hand corner of my screen, the measurement comes up here. It's 11'4" by 15 feet. And this back wall here is 35 feet long. So 11'4", 15 feet, 35 feet long. Okay, so that's good to start with. 8-inch thick walls. All right. I'm going to go to my CAD. Now I've already saved this file, floor plan example. Okay. I'm going to zoom out so I can see my 0, 0. Just helps me orient myself in this limitless space. And I've already changed my units to architectural. So do not forget to do that. Okay. Now, I don't have any layers set up yet except 0. Let's just start with the 0 layer. All right. I'm going to draw a line about right up here, anywhere it's fine, 35 feet long. Okay. Zoom out. Okay. There it is. Now, I might move this up a little bit. I just want to kind of get it in this quadrant of my in relation to 0, 0. That just helps me kind of organize. I don't want to be way off in space. Okay, that's going to give me some grief later. Okay, I got my 35-foot line. I'm going to offset that line 8 inches. Offset There's my existing line. Okay, that's my existing wall. It's 8 inches thick, and it goes 35 feet down. Now I'm just going to turn the corner on it some distance. I'll say 5 feet. I don't really care what happens beyond that 5 feet because it's not really what I'm interested in drawing. There we go. So there, I have it going 5 feet. Now I'm going to trim up these corners a little bit. So I'm going to do TR for trim and click enter, enter. And remember, when you do that, you can just sort of click any line and they go away. Okay. So I've got my existing wall. Now I need to do my 11'4" by 15 feet. And if I look at the model, it looks like it's sort of centered on this 35-foot wall. We'll assume it is. Okay. I'm going to draw a line that's 11'4" down, 15 feet over, and 11'4" up. Now, how do I position this on the wall? Now, what I should have done is maybe made this a polyline, but that's okay that it's not. But how do I position it? So I'm going to draw a line from the center of this wall straight down. Okay. This line I don't need. I need it now to do what I want to do, but then I can delete it later. So I'm going to select these 3 lines and I'm going to move the middle point of this line over to here. Now I know it's positioned left to right, and now I can grab all 3 lines, go ahead and move it. Okay. Now we can check that this box is centered by checking the distance, DIST, on this side, 10 feet, and this side, 10 feet. There it is there. So that looks good. All right, now I know that this wall is 8 inches thick, so I'm going to offset that. Offset 8 inches. And now I'm going to trim this up to clean this up to make it look like one continuous line, one continuous wall, sorry. These. And I'm going to get rid of these where this wall intersects this wall because they're all essentially the same thing. There we go. So I have my office space right in here. And I have the office space or the existing space that the office space is attached to out here. So far, so good. Now I'm going to go ahead and before I pop in the openings of the doors and the windows, I'm going to just make a new line weight and we'll call that the cut line weight. Okay. So I'm going to open my layer properties and I'm going to make a new layer and call it, I'm going to call it number 1 for my darkest line weight. 1 cut line. That's what I'll call it. Okay. And now I'm going to change that line weight to something. I might have to change this later. For now, I'm going to put it at, let's try 0.024 and hit OK. All right, that looks good. So I have 2 line weights right now. I have 1 cut line and I have 0, what the CAD file starts with. Okay, so now I know that all these walls are cut, right? Because they're happening. The cut line is at 4 feet, if you remember from the lecture. And I'm cutting through all of this stuff that I currently have drawn. Now I can show that for you here. Let me just show you. Edit, unhide all. So here is where the cut is going to occur for a floor plan. So this plane is 4 feet up from the bottom of the model. Right click and activate that cut. Now this is essentially what we're drawing. Now I didn't finish off this wall here, but you get the idea. This wall continues. Here's my existing wall. And here is the office wall right here. I don't have any of these openings in yet, but I have the wall laid out. So I'm just going to go to my top view and I'm going to turn off my my projection. So this is kind of essentially where we're at. We don't have these openings. But this is a good visualization to help you visualize what we're doing in 3D. Now, remember, when you draw a floor plan, though, you will not have like sort of a model that you can spin around like this. We're going to learn this program as we go on, SketchUp here, but for this assignment, you won't. So it's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, so I'm going to reassign all of these layers, all these lines here to my cut line. Okay, now I just changed it, but I noticed the line weights haven't changed. So I'm going to go to my customize my bottom toolbar, make sure my line weight's on, and then I'm going to go ahead and click the button here, turn it on, the three kind of thick to thinner lines. And boom, there it is. So this is nice and thick. I might go into my layers right now and sort of dial this back a little bit so that I'm not blinded here. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my model and I need to draw these two doorway openings. Okay, so I'm going to just check how far over this is from the edge. That's 1 foot over, and the doorway itself, the actual doorway, not counting the frame, is 3 feet wide. So I'm going to go to my CAD, and what I'll do is I'm just going to make a line out here. Okay, and I'm going to move that line 1 foot over, and then I'm going to copy that line 3 foot over. So that's where that opening should live. So I'm going to go to my cut line, draw 2 lines here and here, and then I'm going to trim out these 2 lines here and here. There we go. And then I'll delete these lines because I don't need them anymore. So there we have that opening for the doorway is put into the drawing now. Now we need to add the other doorway back here. So I'm going to go back to my model, check the measurements out. Now, if I measure this corner to this corner, it says 4 inches. And this is another 3 foot wide door. And this corner to this corner is 4 inches, which means this door and this door are perfectly aligned. Okay, so I'll show you a trick. I'm just going to draw 2 construction lines straight up, and I'll use the XL command for construction line. XL, enter, V, enter for vertical line. Put it right on this corner and right on that corner. So I have 2 lines drawn, and they go right over to here. Now I'm going to trim all this up so that I can get rid of my long lines, but keep this cutout here. So first thing I'll do is trim out the middle lines. Then I'll trim out the long ones. So to turn these corners, I could use trim, or I could use the fillet command. Now, if you remember, the fillet command puts a curve at a corner at a certain radius, even if that radius is 0. So if it's a 0 radius, it just makes a perfect corner. So I can do F for fillet, enter, specify first object, or I can look, if you look down below here, it already says my radius is at 0, so that's good. So I can just click here and here, hit the space bar to repeat the last command, click here and here. I'm just going around the horn. So there we go. Got my doorways in now, and now I need to add my window openings. Not my windows or my doors yet, just the openings. So the opening for the window occurs, well, let's take this line. Ooh, that's a funky dimension. Let's see what it is from here. 2 foot 1 3/4, and it is 2 foot 3. And then from here, it's 2 foot 1 3/4 and 2 foot 3. 2 foot 1 3/4. Who thought of that? So what I'm going to do is just offset this line. Offset 2 foot 1.75 inch. Okay. And how wide is that window again? 2 foot 3. Yeah. And then I'm going to offset that line, same line, 2 foot 3. Delete that. And there we go. Now I'm going to offset this line, 2 foot 1.75 inch. I'm going to trim this line. I'm going to offset this 2'3". There's my other window, so I'm going to trim that out. Okay, here's the deal. We're done with our cut line basically for the wall, not for the door, not for doors, or not for the windows, but we are for the wall. So this looks good. This is like saying, okay, I got my walls done, got the openings for each wall done, and now I'm going to move on to drawing the actual door and drawing the actual windows. But this looks good. Now, one thing you might want to do, which I won't do on here, is make a new layer and call it, actually, I can do that part. Let me do this. Okay, I'll make a new layer. I'm going to call this hatch. I'm going to give that a color, like a middle gray, 252, 253, somewhere in there. I'm going to change the line weight to 0 or default. Okay. And I could go to my hatch layer and I could draw a line up here and I could draw a line here. Okay. Now that I've plugged these two holes, I could hatch all of these shapes so that I have a nicely gray solid hatch in those walls. Now, I don't want it to be a black. I don't want it to be, at least in this drawing, solid white, because I would print black. I want it to be a gray because I want to make sure that I'm showing that I know how to do line weight. So I want to keep that nice dark line weight on the edges, the black line weight, and then do a nice gray hatch inside. My hatch tool on my specific computer has been a little buggy, and it eats up a lot of time on the recording, so I don't want to do that. But I would if I were you. Okay, so let's do our first door. Okay, now here's something to consider. Now that we're going to get into the specifics of the door, like the lines of the frame, remember I said is 2 inches, 5 inches, 2 inches, and 5 inches. It's the lines are sort of closer together. So maybe the 0.2 line weight would be too dark, because when you have 2.2 line weights together, their line weights might bleed together when you sort of print this to paper at a certain scale. Same with the door. So let's make a new line weight. And this is the line weight we'll use for the frames for our doors, our windows, our and the glass, and all the frames holding that stuff. So I'm going to go to my layer properties and I'm going to make a new layer and I'll call it 2. I'm just going to call it 2. Okay, because I want it to go in order. 1 is my cut line. That's the darkest. And from there, I'm going to go back to lighter and lighter line weights. So number 2 will be my next one. I'll make sure it's set to white. Now, something you may have noticed that because I'm on hatch and I click new line weight, it's going to take the properties of hatch, copy it down. It's a little annoying. You could have gone to 0 first, then hit new, and you would have had kind of your default stuff here, but that's what happens. So if this is 0.020, I'm going to go in here and maybe I'll just do 0.012. Okay. I'm going to close this. Okay, so let's draw the frame, the door, and the frame. Now let me go to the 3D example. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So here's the wall that we already drew. So now we have to place the frame on the end of the wall. So this is the frame that's essentially holding up the door, where the door hinges on, where the door latches. This is the door itself, which in plan we typically never show closed like this. We'll show it open. And this is the other side of the frame. Okay. In your house, for example, the frame might actually come all the way to the end here. And then there might be another piece of wood over the wall and frame, over the wall and the frame end. So there's kind of like a piece out here, a piece in here, and a piece out here. That's perfectly reasonable too. You can include all or some of that information. It's up to you. Once we get to the assignment, you'll know what I'm talking about. But in our case, our frame just sort of sits in this larger opening. All right, let's go to CAD. Now I'm going to switch to that second line weight, and I'm just going to draw my two frames. I'm going to draw them out here, then I'll move them into place. So I'm going to use PL. So remember, for frames, I said 2 inches, 5 inches, 2 inches. Okay, there's one frame. I'm going to grab this frame and I'm going to move it and I'm going to position it right in the center there. Now, a question you might be asking is, why did I draw this line here if it basically goes away? When you're drawing a floor plan, I highly suggest you get in the habit of drawing all sides of a given thing. So this is a piece of frame and this is a wall, right? So even though this side of the frame lines up with that wall, I'm going to draw the whole frame as if it's a tube that lives on its own, kind of thing. Okay, so this line weight here will trump the line weight that has a lower thickness. Sorry, I can hear my kid pounding on something, so I just want to make sure I'm come in here and ruin the recording. Okay, so we have this frame over here. Now I'm going to copy that frame and put it over here. There's the other side of my door. Okay, now the door we'll show it swung open with a arc over here to show where the swing goes. So let's say the door is 2 inches. Okay, now we know our rough opening is 36 inches wide, and then minus 2 inches here and minus 2 inches here. So 36 minus 4 inches makes a 32-inch wide actual door. So I'm going to go ahead and do PL for polyline. I'm going to start at this corner. I'm going to go straight down, go 32 inches. I'm going to go 2 inches over, and I'll go 32 inches and back. There we go. Now, if that door swung the other way, you could have drew it from this corner and going that way. Now, probably the door could be over here, probably wouldn't be over here, because here it's kind of out of the way of the entry. If it was over here, it's against the wall, which is kind of nice. So I would say 1.5 inches to 2 inches is good. This looks a little thick to me, but that's okay. So this is my thickest line weight, and this is my next thickest line weight. Even though this is still cut like this, I have it at a lighter line weight only because these two lines, this line and this line, this line and this line, are kind of close to each other. So those, when they print, they'll appear dark just like this. You could start with it on the cut layer. That's just fine, but you might have to lighten it after you print when you realize everything's sort of bleeding together. Okay, so we've got that done. Now we just have to add the arc. Okay, so here's how I do it. I'm going to go to the 0 line weight for the arc. I'm going to type in C for circle. I'm going to go to where that hinge point is here, click once, and click on the other side of my frame there. Now I have my arc here, but I got to trim away the rest. So I'm going to type in TR for trim, click this shape and this shape, hit enter, and then click what I don't want out here. Look at that. We've drawn a beautiful door. Okay. Now I know this door occurs over here too. So instead of drawing everything again, which is good practice, I'm going to grab these elements, type in group. Now they're one piece. I'm just going to copy this, go to the midpoint of that frame and position it right there. All right, this is really starting to come together. I got my nice wall, I got my doors in there. The only thing I need to add now, at least in terms of this model, is the window information and any overhead information. And what I mean by overhead is if I'm standing at this door, what's over my head, right? It's this roof, right? And it sort of overhangs from the wall. So how do we show that in a plan? And I'll get to that. But let's do the window now. So, 1 second here. There we go. So let's look at this window. The cut's pretty simple. We have another frame, piece of glass, another frame. Okay, fairly straightforward. Our glass technically has thickness, but we'll show it with no thickness, just one line. When I look down, what do I see? Okay, I see the frame below. That's this line right here. So if I tilt it, you see the frame on the bottom? That's holding the glass. If I tilt it back, what is this I'm seeing here? That's the sill, the actual opening of the wall itself. You would see that edge too. So we have to get that information in there. So we have to get the cut information, and then we have to get the beyond information. There's no beyond information over here because there's no frame at the bottom of the door, because that would be stupid, right? Because then every time you open a door, you have to step over a frame, in which case most people would trip, including myself. All right, so let's use the same line weight as the door and frame, and let's add a frame, a piece of glass, and a frame to our drawing. Now, since we're using the same frame, why draw it again? I'm going to grab, well, this is grouped, right? So what I could do is ungroup this and leave this one up here grouped. And I can just grab this frame, copy it, grab it in the middle, hit this one, and I'm going to do this one. Now I'm going to copy this one, grab the other side of it, position it, and position it. Good to go. Got our frames in. I'm going to draw the, sorry, not cut line, but I'm going to go to my second line weight. Just put a piece of glass in right there. Okay, the cut portion of those windows is done now. But now let's add the beyond information. Now, I definitely want my cut to be the darkest, and the frame beyond and the sill beyond I want to be lighter. So if I look at my 3D model and I flip that again, looks like I need to add a line here and here to show the frame at the bottom, and a line here and a line here to show the sill, the wall opening at the bottom. All right, so let me go there. Let's go to our third line weight, which could be the 0. We could use that, or just to make sure we're clear on our layers, I'm going to make a new one and just call it 3. And I'm going to give it a line weight of default, which is basically the same exact settings as 0, but I'll keep 0 separate. So I'm going to go to the third line weight, and I'm just going to add a line here, add a line here, and add a line there, and here. Okay, so I'm going to grab all these lines, copy them, since I know these windows are the same size, and put them right over there. And there we go. That is how you draw a proper window. Now, in floor plan. Now, something to think about. Maybe on the inside, you've got a really nice piece of wood that is your sill, and maybe that pokes in, say, 2 inches. And I'm just going to move this up 2 inches and add the corners of that piece of wood like that. That could look something like that, or these lines could actually move down a little bit. This line could come over, and it's a little different detail where the wood sort of wraps the corner of the wall. I'm just going to undo that, but I just wanted to show you that it's not just the wall there. It's whatever the sill detail is on the outside and whatever the sill detail is on the outside here, on the inside here. So this is reading really nice. When I say reading, I can clearly tell what is cut and what is beyond. This line, this line, this line, that line. Okay, so our floor plan is just about done. Now we need to add the outer information. that is things that are above that are important to note on our drawing. So in this case, I just want to point out in this drawing where the heck the roof is, because there's an overhang. We got an overhang on, let me just rotate this. We have an overhang on the front and we have an overhang on the side. So I'm going to go to my line tool, check the side overhangs 1 foot and the front overhangs 2 feet. Okay, so anything that is above the cut line, so above 4 feet that we want to show in this floor plan because we think it's important, we want to show that in a dashed format. So I'm going to make a new layer and I'll just call it dashed, or you can call it overhead. I'm going to go to the line type and load in the dashed line type. Now, just a reminder, I wouldn't use any of these ACAD ones. I would just use the ones that are named. They behave a lot better. So I'm going to select dashed here and hit OK. I'm going to select it in my line type selector here in my loaded line types and hit OK. And now I see it here. Okay, I'm going to double click on that layer to get on that layer. And now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a line right here from this corner down. And I can see that it's too long, but that's fine. I'm going to move it over 1 foot. Okay. And I'll show you how to change the scale of this line in a moment, but you can see its dashes are really intense. Okay. Now I'm going to actually draw a line in the middle here and you'll see why. We're going to delete this line, but now I can grab this line and I can mirror it about the center line of this line. So I'm going to grab this line, type an MI, enter for mirror, specify first point of mirror line, the middle point here, and I'll draw a vertical line and click. Erase source object. No, now I have my line on the left and the right, and they're 1 foot off the wall. Now I'm just going to draw a line down here with the front here, and I'll move it down 2 feet. Now I'll use my fillet command. The radius of 0, I'll grab the right-hand side of this line, and that line again, and this line. Okay. So there's my dash line, but it doesn't look dash so much. All right, so I'm going to click one of my lines here, and I'm going to go over here and check line type scale over here. I'm going to click on, instead of it set to 1, I'm going to let's try 5. That looks better. Let me do 10. That looks better. Select these 2 lines and change their line type scale to 10 as well. Now that setting, just so you know, is in properties. Tells me how big that line is, but also tells me line type scale, what layer it's on, what line type, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to change it, line type scale to 10, so that I can actually see that line. That looks pretty good. Okay. So this floor plan, aside from the hatching, which I think you should do, is essentially done. Okay, but let's say I'm going to add a little more detail into here. I want to start laying out what my office could look like. Okay, so all the furniture and chairs and things. So I will do that on the next video. But for right now, this was just sort of getting the elements of the floor plan together. So we've got our cut walls, our windows and doors. Those are like, this door could be any size, but we could draw it exactly the same way. And these windows could be any size, and maybe there's a mullion in the middle, or a frame, if you will, like one of these in the middle. And we can just copy this, put it in the middle, and trim out the glass, and then we have a frame in the middle. So these are your kind of fundamental elements of of architecture in floor plan. Okay, so I'll stop here. I'm gonna do one more video, and then I'll get you that assignment. All right, stay tuned.